Hi everybody and welcome to my new Patreon page. So glad to have you along. Um, it's going to be a wild ride. No, I doubt that really, but we're going to cover quite a lot of painting and pasteling. I'll just introduce you to Mr. Fixit.
Hi folks.
He's producing all the videos for us, so I do the painting, he does the production, works very, very well. So let's get painting. Our subject today is this lovely lily against this dark blue blended background. I thought it would be a nice place to start. There's quite a bit of skill attached to this, so it's suitable definitely for beginners, but the more advanced you are, the more detail you can probably put in there. I'm using today a Jackson's Academy cotton canvas board. It's a 3mm ones. It's the cheaper range that they do, the Academy ones, but they're absolutely fine for this sort of project. But they've been gessoed, but they do tend to be a little bit rough, and because we're blending, it's a good idea to give ourselves the best chance we've got and just give it a little bit of a sand. Just make sure that you blow away or whatever the dust, because otherwise you'll just be painting on top of the dust. Right, for this I've chosen the colours Prussian blue. I'm going to add a little bit of bone black to the Prussian blue, because Prussian blue on its own, when you put white with it, tends to go turquoise, which is lovely. And you see around here it is a little bit turquoise, but I just want to keep it on the blue side. And in order to ensure that it's on the blue side, I'm just going to add a little bit of ultramarine blue. And then when we blend, I'm going to add some titanium white to it. So all of these are for the background. And then when we move on to the flower, I've got sap green for this part here. There's a little bit in there. And then for the stamens, I guess they are, I'm going to mix yellow and orange, which is really exciting because you don't often get to play with those sort of colours. So I'm pleased about that. So let's mix up our background colour on our palette. So some, you can see that, yeah. Some cadmium blue. This is a bit of a mixture, in all fairness. Some bone black and just the tiniest little bit of ultramarine. Just keep it on the blue side. Sounds like an old country song, that, keep it on the blue side. And I'll just mix that together with my palette knife, artist knife I guess this one is. It's got a crank in the handle. So it is basically that Prussian blue, but you can see even there when I spread that out over the white palette, it wants to tend towards turquoise, and that's all right. I don't have a problem with turquoise. I like it. I like teal a lot. It's my favourite colour. So there we are. The paints that I'm using today are, well, a lot of them are the golden fluids. These are golden fluids. Really nice. More and more I'm swaying towards the fluids rather than the hard body. They're just easier to get on your canvas. And this is a Lascaux paint, Prussian blue, which is also on the liquid side. It's certainly not a heavy body at all. The red and orange and yellow are also Lascaux. White's Lascaux, and this one is ARA. I'm not sure if you pronounce it ARA. I'm not sure, but it's also of the same viscosity, i.e. it's quite loose. So there we are. We've got a nice puddle of Prussian blue. Wipe your palette knife off any time that you've been mixing colours. with your palette knife, make sure you wipe it off, because otherwise it dries really quickly, and then then you've got all horrors of scraping it and all that stuff. And then when you scrape it, you don't have good edges then for when you want to use the palette knife. So just wipe it off, it's just easier. So I'm also to this palette, I'm going to add some white, because that's the colour we want. That's the colour that we're blending this mixture into around here and here. So let's get started, I say. So I'm going to use a filbert brush, and this is a long-handled brush. They're not normally the brushes I use, but it just happened to be the right size filbert. So dip your brush into the water, wipe off the excess, into the water, wipe off the excess. That way then you prepare the bristles to accept the paint, and it makes it easier for the paint to come off onto your canvas. So it's worth doing that. So let's start at our darkest area, which is here, and it gets lighter as we get down this way. That's the way the gradient's going. So you see, for all the black that we added, it still wants to be turquoise. So try and keep a damp edge as you progress, so you can paint into the damp edge, otherwise you'll end up with a hard line. I'm just going to introduce the tiniest little bit of white here up into that leading edge of the paint that we've got. And just brush that in so you're getting a gradient there. Just gently, very gently. And a bit more colour. You do need a lot of paint on your brush. If you're going to blend properly, you need plenty paint. It's impossible to get good blend with not very much paint, because the canvas just grabs it. Just going to introduce a little bit more white down here. If you're not getting a really good blend, you're not happy with it, don't go back into it at this stage, because it'll be drying. And if you go back into it at this stage, it's going to lift all the paint off that you've put down. If you're not happy with it, wait till it dries and just go back in and go back over the bits that you feel could benefit from a bit more blending. So we need to come down this way. See how it whips the paint off your brush. So like I say, you need plenty of paint. And as we get down to this bit, we need some more white in there, and just take that back over the piece that we've blended there, and up again. I'm just going to wipe the white off my brush there, because it's travelling up the blend with me, which I don't want. Just feather it out. Just a little bit of water on the brush now, just to help that on its way. Now we're getting really quite light over here. A little bit more white to that, just for this bottom corner. So we've got a lovely light blue there in that corner. You can see now why we added the black, because without it we'd be in absolute bright turquoise. So now I'm just going gently, and I mean I'm just kissing the canvas here. When you start to feel it grip, just add a little bit of water to your brush. Just go over your blend. A lot of this is water, so it'll just dry off. But as you go into the dark, keep wiping the light colour off your brush, because you'll keep carrying that light colour up. I'll just go into the dark again. It's quite dry now up here. Blend it down gently. A little bit of water certainly helps. There we are. I think we've got quite a nice blend there. Wait and see how that dries. I'm just going to have to use the hairdryer on that. Okay, so that's dry now, and we're ready to move on to the next part of our painting, which is putting the lily on. So what we do, or what I do, is I've printed this out at the same size as my canvas, which is 6 by 8. So I'm just going to attach it at one side with a bit of masking tape. I'm going to attach it to the top. So put it over my picture and then flip it over and attach it to the back of the canvas, like that. And you can see then we've got a hinge. So every time we put that down, it's going to be in exactly the same place, which is always helpful. And then we're going to use transfer paper. Pop that down. This is very well used transfer paper, but it's still good for the job. So we want to transfer the lily. So you need a sharp pencil or a ballpoint pen or something of that ilk. And I'm using white transfer paper because, well, the lily's white and the background's very dark, so I want it to show up. But I also don't want to get it dragged into my paint. So if I used red or something like that, there's always the danger that it'll get mixed up with your paint. So the little trial size of Surreal transfer paper that I got has got, I think it's 5 colours in it. So think carefully about where it's going and what you're painting before you select your Surreal colour. People sometimes shudder when they see me do this transferring. You know, oh, you should be drawing your own, blah, blah. Well, why? Why should I be drawing my own? This is about painting. It's not about drawing. If you can draw, that's great. Draw it yourself, freehand. You know, I applaud you. But many of us, although my drawing isn't too bad really, but many of us can't draw. But that shouldn't stop us from painting. And transfer paper, you know, it's a tool. It's a tool that we've been given that we can use. So let's make the most of it. Get our picture down on there, and then we can start doing the good bit, which is painting. So transfer all the marks that you think are going to be helpful to you. If you miss some out, we have got it on the hinge, so we can come back anytime we like and retransfer, if you like, over the bits that we might have painted over that we can't see. I'm not going to put the stem fuzzy bits on in a minute because I need to paint the lily first. So let's fold that up out the way and see what we've got. Yeah, probably need to. Well, you can't actually see where they go, so I think they're all right. Now, don't worry when you take the transfer paper away and you've got all this background fuzziness. That comes off with a damp cloth at the end, no problem. So let's move on to painting our lily. Now, a lot of it is a sort of lightish blue, similar colour to the background really, but it's perhaps slightly bluer. So let's take that mix that we've got, add a little bit more ultramarine to it, mix that up and see what that gives us. We're going to have to mix some white through it as well. That's too dark and we need it to stand out. The flower is white. So I'll take some of this white over there. Oh, isn't that a lovely colour? Well, that's nice, but it still looks like it's going to be a blue flower, which is not what we want. I'm just going to remove some of that away over here and add a little bit more white to it. If you end up like that you've got a huge puddle of colour that you're trying to change, just take a little bit out of it. Don't try and change the whole puddle because you'll be there a long time. And use loads of paint, which, you know, costs a lot of money. I'm just going to put one more drop of ultramarine in there. Just blue it up. So yeah, I think we've got the colour we want. Right, so we need quite a intricate brush. I'll use this 1/4 inch angle shader. It's a Leon Hardy brush, and I really have come to like these Leon Hardy brushes a lot. During my commissions that I was doing, some of them were such fine work, they really were. This is one of the brushes that I bought for the commission, and you can see, I mean, it's, well, you can't see, it's Diddy. And the other one that I used a lot was this Leon Hardy dagger, 1/4 inch dagger, striper. It seems to have different names, but it was a really handy brush. It's good for getting very thin lines. But we'll start with the 1/4 inch angle shader, see where we get with that. So, oh look, I haven't put the back of my lily in. So we're not off to the best of starts then with that. I think it's just this back piece here that I've missed. It's got the rest of everything else. So let's see where that gets us. So the blue is in here on this one. This is going to be quite a pale colour and might take a couple of coats actually to cover over. I didn't put this line in either. I've missed my lines. This part down here is blue. Or reading as blue, I should say. It's white. The flower is white. but because it's reflecting back up from this blue that we're looking at, there's a lot of blue in it. But that paint mixture is covering very nicely. So this starts about here. I might have to go back and see on the transfer exactly where things are. But so far we'll just approximate. So there's a white edge to this one. So I'll just leave that an edge to it so we can get the white on. Has to be said, flowers are just so beautiful. They're beautiful to paint, they're beautiful to look at. I've been doing my own bit of horticulture, as you can see. Streptocarpus, I've got 3 of them. Well, I've got 4, but one's a bit poorly. I'm really pleased with them. Got them as plug plants for my birthday last year, and they flowered last year, but nothing like this year. They've gone mad. Maybe worthy of a tutorial at some stage, even. So it comes into the centre, this blue. So we're basically getting a coat of this blue down before we start on any of the nuances of the shading. Just going for this. I think that's probably about there, I think. Right. Well, let's put the green stem on and we'll feel we're getting somewhere. Just a tiny amount of green is all that's needed, I think. This big brush that I did the background with, it's been sitting in the water all that time. That's not good for your brushes, it really isn't. So clean it out best you can. Still a lot of colour in that. And leave it, but don't leave it too long. Don't get it back in if you're having a really big painting session. So we'll just take the colour, rinse this out in the water, and put that stem on. So the little back part of the stem is in a darker green, so we'll just use the pure sap green for that. And then the other bit is a little bit lighter. Mix a little bit of white through. That's dry already virtually, to be honest. So it comes in quite light. And then I'm just using the point of this angle shader just to get me where I need to get to. It comes up here as well. But there is a little bit of brown in that, and there's a little bit of white in it, so we'll pay attention to that once we've got the base colour on. So that's pretty much that. Need a brown. Not crimson. Here's a raw umber that's just made for the job. Really don't need much at all, but I do need quite a small brush. So let's see what brushes I've got here. I'll try this one, but it is tiny. So just mix a little bit of brown in through that green. There's a browny cast to it. And as it comes up here, it's getting quite browny. I quite like that colour. I don't think it's dark enough for a true representation, but I do actually quite like it, so I think I'll leave that. There's a brown shadow in here. That's pretty much it. There's not much to it really. It's going to darken that shadow a little bit. And this is around 30 Daleroni. It's titchy. It's a titchy brush. So we need some white into that green mixture because we want it. It's white basically, but it's just got a hint of green in it. So we bring that up here. This is just where it's sort of folding, opening out, folding out. And back into that green there. As it actually comes around, it's not straight, it comes around like that. It's just the lighter brown I'm just putting on there just to soften it a little bit. That's fine. It's grand, and then it's got a little white section where one bit joins the other. Type that in. So that's pretty much the stem done. There wasn't too much to do with that. But don't leave those tiny little brushes in your water. You know, they're just, if you think about it, they're in the water and it's the tip, and the tip isn't strong enough to support the brush, so it gets bent over and then you can't unbend it and it's jiggered. So rinse it out and leave it to one side. Right, let's go back to this, to the lily. Let's put some white in it and we'll get sort of a better idea of where we are. It's just really blocking in at the moment. That's all we're doing. It feels like it's a bit wet to me. So up here is white, or predominantly white. That's what we're looking for when we're blocking in. We're looking for the colour that is the most prevalent in any area. And we get that in, and then we can work highlights from there. Highlight shadows, but we need to get it blocked in first. So this is still a 1/4 inch angle shader that I'm using. It's doing the job perfectly fine. There's not that much real white on this one. It does go down there into a sort of whitey bit. So it's around that petal on the other side. Looks like it's in a strange angle, but it's not. So there's not really too much to do on here. Let's draw the outline. Not very often that you get to draw things, you know, the outline of things. I'm just going to use a small brush up here. And this one's pretty similar really, it's just got this outline, which is very strange. So once we get blocked in, we'll be able to see where we're going, what needs to be done, etc. This one's got a little bit of light catching it there. And the tip of it is quite white too. It goes down a little way there, but it certainly doesn't go all the way down. And then this one is folded over, the same as the side of it as we did with the corresponding one on the other side. Okay, so now I think we can block in the centre part as white. Trying to make it a really solid line because that makes covering it over quite difficult. Also, I'm quite pleased with this white. It's handling covering over this Prussian blue mix very well. It's a Lascaux colour and it's called crystal white. That is supposedly brighter than titanium white. Very well might be. Can't really judge it yet. Right, so let's get some details on here. So let's start with this one. I'm just going to mark where it comes down to. That one. So obviously missed doing it. Comes around like this and then along. So now we've got a line where the blue goes down to, where the white comes up to. So we'll just mark that in. It's quite a definite line actually because it's bent over. We can leave that as a definite line. Let's move to this one, the one that we're talking about. And take a little bit of the mixture that we had, a little bit of the white. Let's just make this just a little bit pronounced in the centre. And I'm just going to get my very fine brush out. Around the edge is a lighter mix of this colour. Not light enough. Careful when you're using these tiny brushes to mix with. They do distort really quickly. It's just the lighter markings around it. And then you can see it's got just a couple of little dark lines. So that's still alive. Just flicking up from there. Like that, okay. So down the other side of this, which is here, I'm not seeing things, I haven't transferred this very well. I think I did transfer it, I don't know where it's gone to then. Yeah, there it is, I can see it now. So coming up to here, we've got a slightly darker, that sort of colour. Coming up under here, very similar to the background there. And it comes up just as the petal bends over. To give the impression of that petal bending. So that's that. The rest is white. Up here, just give that a second coat because it does really need it. That second coat, and it comes diagonally to there. Where does this piece come to? Yeah, all right. That's where it comes to. All right, don't doubt yourselves. Well, you can doubt me, really. Watch me make the mistakes then. As they say, you won't have to. So in here, this piece is this sort of colour that we mixed for that petal there. Because it is that petal there. It's just bent over. So we need to sweep that up to there. And just bring in a little bit of the darker, that one there, just around there, and coming back here. Using the edge of my brush just to blend them together. Might come back with a white after and blend it back the other way, I think. Sensible thing to do. So we need a bit of this darker blue. Well, not so dark because we're going on the background. Just coming up here. And the white blends into it from here. Not too much blue on my brush. So I'll put some new white out because that's so close to that blue. So the section runs down here that's white. I've got a bit of blue in it, but I think we've got it painted out, so we're all right. This is really white here, so we'll give that a second coat. There's a sort of just lighter blue coming down this side. Like that. And then this here is darker. Darker, but not that dark. I haven't got any of my mixture left. A little bit of white in there, but that's that sort of colour, just a little bit darker, and just go over that last edge that you did, just thin it out a little bit with this application. So go right up to it. There's a little sort of knob at the end there. We'll paint that in. And this, as I say, is this darker blue section here, going down into the flower on the outside. So, don't want that there, thank you. Okay, we're going to have to amend that later on. I've obviously painted it in my hand. Right, so this one is also this sort of darky, it's a kind of grey colour really. I might introduce some grey into this. I think it might just benefit from a tiny little bit of grey. Yeah, it's a nicer colour, I think. So this has definitely got this dark at the end. It's got white around it, but it's got dark and it's leading down. I'm just going to add some white to that. And yeah, that's a nice colour. A lot of paint on my brush. So coming down, leaving that white outside edge that it has, but we're painting up to it, therefore we're leaving it not very thick, so it doesn't look like you've just gone along with a paintbrush. It's there, it's definitely there, it's on the picture, but we don't want it to just look like it's just painting around the outside of objects. Needs to fit in. And at the centre, I think, is a bit of a lighter bit coming from here. Right from here, and it's coming up, so it joins onto that darker bit. I still need it lighter than that. Let's put that in again. Yeah, I think that's it. There's not very much to pick and choose between these shades is the problem. They're all very much of a muchness, I have to say. So just feather that out as it goes in towards that centre there. This one, let's move on to that. That's another one that's got this sort of grey type colour, and it's more grey on this side. So I'm putting it down, but I'm biting into that edge that we've already put on. Thin it out. And this goes right down to the centre here. This colour. There is a white section that goes in there, so we'll leave that. That's a nice differentiation between the petals. I think it's Angela Anderson that says, every painting goes through an ugly stage. And, it's right. There are times when you're doing paintings and you just want to throw your hands up in the air and go, no, this isn't happening. But persevere. Just persevere, because you'll get there. Sometimes it's just hard to believe that. So I've just picked up a little bit of blue, Prussian blue there, just for the edge of this, and I'm just going to drag that over a little bit. So we're starting now to put some shading in and think about the shape of the petals. So that's just sort of sitting, this just catching the shadow there. So, like I say, we're beginning to think about shapes. I'm going to have to put some more of this out because it's dried up. I don't want it full on that, but I do want it. Just wipe most of that off, I think. I just need to come into here. It's got lines in it from the brush, and I don't like that, so I'll just get rid of them and feather it out into your petal. There you go. So that's that one pretty much until well, actually it has got some, seeing as we're here, we might as well do it. It's got a little bit of white running in there. And that's probably sufficient to just make it look like it's just not a factory built plastic lily. Yeah, so let's move on to this big one, which has got an awful lot of this bluey grey in. So I'll take some blue, take a little bit of that bone black, a bit of white. Let's see what colour we've actually got. Yeah, I like that colour. Maybe a little bit more white actually, because it is a white lily. It's hard to remember sometimes, but it is a white lily. So this goes down, meets up with this centre, the centre of the lily. And it comes up there. And this sort of just sits into there. And there's this bit that's obviously catching sunlight. And it's those little bits that make it seem real. So thin your lines out if you want to, your white lines. But do leave some. It's important to leave some. And then we'll move on to this one here, which is much darker up in here. That's the darkest part of it. And then it gets lighter as we get out from there. Let's blend them together a little bit. Once we've got this done, we'll have a look and see where we need to go for shading, etc. Right. Okay. Just going to reinstate this line that comes along here. And here. Comes down to there. This big fat chunky line goes there, and then this peels off it. I know we've already done it once, but I'm just getting it clear in my head what's going on. So yeah, that comes round, and then there's a lot of white there. I'm not quite sure what all that blue's doing there. It's a nice cleanish white. So this is white, and it comes up to here and there, and then this one comes off and it's white behind it. Yeah, that's helping matters no end. Right, excuse me just for a moment because I really need to have a drink. Okay, I've wet my whistle as it were, we're ready to go again. So let's go around it once again, looking for shadows, looking for ways to make this look really nice and realistic. So let's choose this dark that let's take some Prussian blue, add a little bit of the bone black to it, and maybe a little bit of that, a little lighter one. Yeah, okay. So we're going to use this now as this dark colour in here. It's possibly not dark enough, so we'll darken it with a bit more black. This is bone black, it's not, full throttle carbon black or anything. It's bone black, so it's fairly transparent really. You can use carbon black, just be careful. Don't forget that it really does tint. It has a high tinting ability. I'm going to swap for this stripe onto my sword brush because you get nice fine lines with that. Same thing, wet your bristles, and I need to pick up for here a little bit of light, that sort of colour. It's better for your sword brush when you're doing it if you've got quite watery paint. I think they must really be designed for watercolours, but they're perfect for us. And when you use it, when you're loading it, stroke it that way, sort of at that angle, you're very low to it, and that way, and just check that the point is a point before you start painting. So this little knob comes around here, and then it's just a very thin line down there, which this brush is really good at. So I think that's all we need from that for the time being. Oh, actually maybe I'll just use a bit of that and just go into this the bottom here, like that. I don't need much more. So it's we're probably onto the white now, really. White with a little bit of that through it. That's a good colour for us. Maybe that. And this is this white, which it is white, but it's really a sort of light blue. And it comes down there, and it just yields into that little bit of blue there, and into there. Okay, so that's pretty much done, I think, that petal. So we're moving on to this one. We need this sort of colour up around the top. Now I've got dark up there, but we need another little bit of dark. And cut into that line, the outside line, which is there but isn't. So we just want to be able to see it. That's all, no more. So this is the dark tip. I'm just going to eat into that little bit at the top of white, because it's too white. It's too white in outline. So you can see there where I've eaten into it. So it's still there, but barely. So go back, paints are drying out today. Go back into there and lighten our colour up a little bit. So like that, maybe a little bit more than that. And come down each side. Just bite into the bit at the top, so it's not a solid edge where one thing starts and another stops. I'm just going to leave that centre line because it is a slightly different tone. So just coming down, biting into those edges there. Same thing on the other side. See how near those edges you can get and still leave them in. It's a good challenge for you. So then we need some white coming out. I'm not sure that's light enough. You can always change it. So yeah, that's fine. So let's move on to this one. And once again, we need some dark. And once again, I'm going to have to mix it because it keeps drying on me. A bit of black. Yep, I'm happy with that. It's just up this edge really. It goes down to about here. I'm quite sure that you can probably do this Lily and Bish Bash Bosh style, but we're aiming for something really pretty. So none of your Bish Bash Boshing, please. unless you want to. When you've completed some of the tutorials, depending which tier you're in, obviously, you can share them onto the Miss Paint-A-Lot's art group. Always happy to see results of tutorials on there, and I think it inspires the other people. It's very much a group for beginners, that one. I think I've got too much dark on there. I've got carried away because I was talking. Never mind, it's only paint. We can rectify. There's a line comes up here, which I should have done with my dagger because that's too thick. We need some dark up here. Let's just think about what we're doing a while. Some dark up here that goes into the tip. And then it gets a little bit lighter. It's so easy to get lost in paintings. I say this often, and it sounds, like you need to be able to read a map. That's not the case. You don't need to be able to read a map. But if you're sort of copying something, you need to be able to see where you are. And sometimes it really, really is easy to just get lost. There's a central section up there. It's got light and dark in it. And a little bit dark here, darker. Okay, let's just mix some dark again. That nice colour there. Put that in there. That darkened down. There we are. Coming together, I think. Leave that middle section for the light sort of vein thing that runs through it. And then we're onto this. So we need a dark for there. Which comes up inside there, because this petal is sort of folded over pretty much. So it's got a really dark bit in there, and then it comes out to a lighter bit. Just lighten it up a little bit. Okay. Now this petal here is probably the darkest of all, because as I say, it's sort of folded back on itself. So we'll do that in quite a dark colour, I think. Just come down a little way down here as well. And then around there. It's got this edge to it that's a lighter blue. Right, okay. So we're definitely making progress. Definitely. So let's move back to the whites then and see what we need to put in. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to put the line down here, down the centre of it. So it's a darker colour, and there's two ribs of dark. That lovely fine line that you get with this brush. and then there's another one in parallel to it. And in between those is actually quite a lightish colour. So let's cast around and see if we've got any. No. We'll make some then. A bit more water for this brush. This is a light colour that goes in between them. It's just catching the light. Okay, so let's rinse that one out. And let's see where we need to go with the white, I think. It's my detail brush. Oh, my quarter inch is still in water, that's naughty. It's naughty. So then let's start from here and see exactly what we need to do to finish this petal off. We need a little bit of white down into here. And there's a little bit of white just there. And then this white section is really white. And last time we put it in, we had blue on our brush, so it didn't come out the bright white that we want it to. Let's just get this folded over a bit on the top. Like that. Okay. Right, once again, I don't like that, this thick line down here. So I'm just going to use some of the light colour that we have here and just pull into that a bit, like that. And then I need to get the darker and go back. Up over it a little bit so you blending it out, giving it a bit of realism. So I think that petal is pretty much done. So this one, what do we need regards whites or anything else? Well, as we start to get into the centre, there are greens, but I'm going to leave that and deal with the centre as one entity. So here we've got different colours, but they're not really blended. So they need to be blended out a little bit more than that. And as it comes down to here, it goes into the very pale colour. It's fine there, it's blending it nicely there. Need some of this. Need to make some more up. There's some of this colour coming down, so you haven't got a sharp blended edge. Well, sharp edge that isn't blended, I should say. There we are, and then there's this very dark at the top, which is pretty much just Prussian blue. And it's this shape again of the folded over petal. Just blend it. I'm just kissing this. It's dry brushing really. I'm just dry brushing it into that. So I think we're all right with that petal. I think that petal's looking nice. Let's move on to this one, see what it needs. Give it what it needs, you know, not what you want to give it what it needs. And you can only ascertain that by really looking at it. So Where's that nice dark colour that I've just mixed up? Must be this one. So, yes, it has got this dark section down here. And then it does move on to a lighter section. It's definitely a line there where it changes from section to section. And this has a white line right there, so it differentiates this one from the boy next door. Okay, so that's fine. I just want to pick up a bit of that darker and dry brush that into there. So dry brushing is an excellent way of just laying down just a titchy bit of colour, giving it a bit of a shade, bit of shading. Right, this brings us on to the big boy. Now, up on his top bit, just check I'm not carrying paint around here. There is a darker bit up here. Might even be darker than that, to be honest with you. I'm going to pick up Prussian blue and put that in there. Then I'm going to get the next colour along and just pull that out. Pull that Prussian blue out, leaving just a tiny little bit on the edge. And you don't want to go over the lines that you've just made, so it'll just be daft. Now then, there is a slightly lighter bit that comes this way off there. I'm going to wipe my brush off all paint and just dry brush that in, so it's blended, but it's definitely there. Okay, and pretty similar with the other, except there's no dark on this, no real dark. It's just pretty light, really. And leave some of that original colour showing through, because it's about it's the shade that we want. So we'll leave that. And as it comes up to here, there is a slightly darker bit. Yeah, so I'll grab some darker. I've got a lot of light on my brush, so I think I'm alright just grabbing this. It's just a little bit there. It's a bit darker. I'll put that in there that's dark. That little bit there. So now this brings us to this one, and there's quite a bit of dark. Just going to add a slight bit of white, but it's dark. I want it dark. And it comes out from where that petal is folded over. And then I need a lighter one. That sort of nice bright colour. And just pull that dark down. Wipe your brush off. And just dry brush up to that section, that darker section. Maybe needs a little touch more dark, actually. just so we know it's folded over. So on the end of that, I'm just going to get my very fine brush. On the end of that is a little bit that's folded over. Just got a little kink in it. Just gives the idea that it is folded over. Because you don't get very much paint on these tiny little brushes, so you don't have to reload very, very often. But it's worth it because, you know, you get really nice details. So there we are, that's giving the idea that that's folded over. So yeah, I quite like that, that's quite nice. So now we really need to address this this part, which is pretty much more grey than blue. So I'm just going to take some of the bone black, a little bit more than nothing, and some white. Yeah, okay, that's really dark. I'm going to nip a bit of that out. Still think that's too dark. Yeah, okay, let's see what that does for us. So there's a little bit of grey that comes up here. It's grey. A little bit that comes up here. Around there. There's a line. It's, oh, we didn't do this one, did we? I'm doing the round. It's a line that comes up from here. Should have done this with my striper. And it goes up into this petal. And there's another one that comes up and it goes to the edge of that petal there. Apart from that, I think we're okay. So I'm just going to grab some white, such as it is, the bit I have left, but it will do nicely. This just needs another coat. It's just, so I'm just going to take some of the weight out of those lines as well while I'm doing that. And down here. I'm just going to take all my paint off my brush and just dry brush over that grey. I like it, I want it there, it's just a bit too in your face. So that's fine. I need just the tiniest bit of, where's my brush, of green. And it's two lines that just come up from the stem. What probably originally was a bud or something. I don't know. I don't know why I said that, because it obviously wasn't originally a bud, these green bits. But make your own mind up, the green bits on a flower. So there we are. So the green is going to come into play again in the centre of here because it's quite a greeny, very pale green, very, very pale green. But I think we're probably ready to add that. So let's mix up. Yikes, I haven't got any space. Thank you so much. Look at Mr. Fix. It's made me a new palette. Blimey. He's good, isn't he? Right, I'm just going to stop for a sec and have a drink. I'm sorry, I'm not making this up. It's a really warm summer's day here. And I can't swallow. So I'll be back in a sec. Okay, that's keep me going for another little while. So the centre of this has got a greenish cast to the white. So I'm just going to put out really a minimal amount of green. And some of this crystal white, which I'm quite taken with actually. Quite like it. I'm going to put out a fair bit of that because we're always dabbing into it, aren't we? So I've got the grey in that, which is looking good. So what we're concentrating on now is the centre section. I'll get my 1/4 inch angle shader and we'll see if we can get this sorted. Still got blue on that brush. Yep, Prussian blue is a good tinter. Right, so let's just take a tiny bit of that and a fair bit of that, a fair bit more of that. I'm just going to take off a little bit now, some white to it. Yeah, that's okay. I want it to look a little bit green. So it comes out, the centre is here. So this comes out. Not water in that. Much water on the brush. It comes out and it comes up the petals a little way. So we've got pretty much right, I think. I'll leave that section there white, this edge of this petal, because it is white. Careful not to go over that petal. It's turned. And then this one comes up a little way. They're not all identical, so don't get suckered into making them identical. And this one's actually quite white here. Or at any rate, it looks white. Okay, so I think that's the colour that we were aiming for. I'm quite pleased with that. Just doing a visual check around just to make sure we've got everything. This is I knew there was something that we'd forgotten. I'm just going to put out a diddy bit of Prussian blue. Good thing with these Lascaux ones is if you put too much out, you can unscrew the top, which you can't at the moment, but you can unscrew the top and put your excess back in. Don't put it in after you've left it out for a whole painting session because it'll have a skin on it. Some of the water will have evaporated, so it won't be at its most pristine. So straight away, if you put something out, oh, that's too much, unscrew the lid, get your palette knife, put it back in, that's fine, but only then. Right, where's my 1/4 inch brush? Here we are. So I just want a little bit of this, a little bit of that. That's quite a nice bright blue. Maybe a little bit darker actually. So let's eat into that line that we've got that's going around it. I don't like that too much. And then it gets darker as it gets nearer where it's folded over. Put a darker one in there. Okay. Just a moment, that comes up there. Actually, with my striper, I'm just going to take a little bit of that of that colour, because there is a stripe of this coming into here, and there is also this petal has got an edge here. Now that's in, we can see that we need just a little bit more white down here, on into there. So yeah, that's looking much better. So this is the stride, virtually. Just need a little bit of white. I'm just going to dry brush just a little bit up here, just to give it some love. Right, so that's pretty much that. What I would say is it looks very, very blue, and it is actually a white flower. So I think because of that, I'm going to give it a white glaze over it, just to knock it back into being a white flower. Before we put the stamens on, because they're definitely orange, we don't want to knock them back. So I'm just going to get some glazing medium. I use De Laroni glaze medium. They're all the same, pretty much. I haven't found one that's good or Mr. Fix-It. Thank you. Just going to get some glazing medium out. That's possibly way too much. I'll leave that because I want it to be a really light glaze. And I'm actually going to use mix. It's called mixing white or tinting white, zinc white. They're all pretty much the same thing. They're transparent white, which is what we want. I don't want. This is quite a big one. As you can see, this Winsor & Newton Galleria. I don't normally use this brand for paint, for pigments, but mixing white is mixing white. So I'm just going to take a bit of that and mix it in through my glazing medium. We'll just try a little bit on first because we don't want to actually blot everything out. Which with mixing white, I don't think you would. It's probably more a question of going the other way, but we'll see. We'll see as we go along. So that's my stripe brush. Here's my 1/4 inch angle shader, and I need to really rinse out all the blue in that brush. There's no point trying to glaze it and then put more blue on it. So just make sure that we've got the blue out of that. I think we pretty much have. So take a bit of this and see if it's what we want. It's still blue in my brush, but right. So just carefully go over the whole flower that you've just painted. I'll see if that knocks it back enough. This one. Humongous amount of paint on the brush. This is certainly whitening it up. So it is a white flower at the end of the day. I think that's looking better. It's looking more like a white flower. Of course, if we don't think it's enough, we can give it another coat of glaze. But I think it might be alright there. So it's a very thin coat, more glazing medium than mixing white. And mixing white on its own doesn't have much strength, so it's quite a... I think maybe another coat of that. So bear with me while I just dry this one, please. And just give that a minute to cool. You don't want to be putting paint onto something that you've just dried because it's warm. So as soon as you put the paint on, it'll just dry and you won't be able to spread it around. So it only takes a second for it to dry off. Well, we have got a huge pile mixed up here, so, and this could benefit from another going over. So we'll just do that. Yeah, I think we're getting somewhere where we want to be. Of course, if you've chosen not to do a white flower, you can do this with any colour. If you've chosen a red flower and you think it's looking a bit orange or whatever, give it a red glaze over the top. It'll soon fall into line. So I think we're getting there now. I certainly think it's beginning to look more like a white flower. What do you think, Mr. Fix-It?
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Oh, that's good. I have one fan. I keep forgetting about this little fellow up here. Yeah, I'm happy with that now. It looks like a white flower that would just sort of, it's picking up a lot of this tealy colour. So I think it's now time to move on to the orangey bits. I'm going to give this a quick dry before I put the transfer paper down. Sorry, the sound didn't come on after the break there. Basically, what you've missed is Mr. Fix-It showing me the pieces of a flower and me talking about that. So I haven't really missed anything. And I'm putting this long green thing in now, which you can see me doing. Just need some white there. I've got an awful lot of blue on that brush. That Prussian blue, man alive, does it tint. So it needs a little bit of white. Just comes up here, and it's sort of spotted around in there, that section. Over into the shadow that we put on, so it's not a definite line. It's just got some white bits. Look at that blue again. I don't want that blue there, I want it to be white. That's it. I'm getting the hang of it now. I'm talking to the Prussian blue, incidentally. I find if you talk to your paints, they behave themselves. So there's a white section here, stem or something occurring there, and just two sort of very fine lines up here. And then it's time for our anthers. So, time to get the orange and the yellow out. How exciting. I almost never get to paint with these. Could you get me a wet wipe, please? As you can see, I've made a right holics of this this paint. I've put orange all over it. I don't really want that because it's brand new and I want it to look brand new. And there's just the odd bit on my hand. Look how bright this is, my goodness me. It's not even fluorescent. That's not fluorescent. Is it? It's fluorescent. No, permanent orange. Permanent. Let's hope it's not that permanent, eh? I'm going to have orange hands forever and a day. That's ridiculous. Okay, thanks very much. Just dry them on my trousers as you do. So I think the first thing to put in is probably the yellow, and then we can go on to putting shadows and highlights in with the orange. This isn't the easiest to see actually with the yellow transfer. You might find that you have to use a different colour. We'll just paint these in, paint in the background really, as it were. But we're on the home straight now. As I say, I look forward to you posting them on the Miss Paint-A-Lot's art page on Facebook, or if you're a top tier member of Patreon, then post them in your private group that we have for our top tier patrons. Right, so now I'm just going to mix that orange with the yellow because it's just, on its own, it's just too bright. So that's looking fine. There's just a sort of shadow down this end, and I'm literally just dotting it. They do look like they've been dotted. So I'm going to put this colour on, and then I might come back in with just a little bit of pure orange, which will really set them off. This has got darkest bit there. It is all quite dark, that one. I've missed lunch and my mind is turning towards what we're having for dinner. which I don't know. Don't know the answer to that question, I'm afraid. Well, this is bringing our lily to life, I think. If you have a favourite flower that you'd like me to do a tutorial for, let me know. Either, put a post on my Facebook page, or I think you can contact me through here. I'm not really too familiar with what goes on and what doesn't go on with Patreon, but I do think there is a method that you can contact me. So if you can find that, contact me by all means. I'd love to hear from you. And if not, message me on my Facebook page. Right, so I'm just going to go into pure orange now. Got my big girl's pants on, and I'm going to put that around kind of where it needs to be. So we've got our 3 shades that we kind of always go with, 3 hues. We've got the dark, the medium, and the light, which you always need. So this is this one, and it's still coming down to there. It's quite dark at the top there. This one really is dark at the top as well. And then we've got that one that hasn't got much dark on it. Much of the orange, it's slightly more yellowy. And this one. Go over some of these parts again with the yellow, so as we really do get a multi-toned anther. Right, let's just move back into the yellow and lighten up some of these sections, so as we can see that they are all individual. Leave the orange round as a sort of outline, really. And we'll do yellow. I'm just debating with myself whether I need to get a little bit of brown out just to separate these, to give them some shadows. Yeah, I think I'll just get some. Oh, I've got some brown already. There's handy, because they're just looking a bit like a blob. They need a bit of separation in the light. I'm going to go straight for the pure raw umber. And this one here definitely has got quite a lot of shadow to it. And this one here has got shadow down there. There's another one here. And there's this one here. Just got shadow there from the one above it. And these two have got a shadow here because there's one line underneath the other one. Okay, so I'm just going to take that paint off my brush and just grab it along a little bit. Sort of dry brushing it really, which is a bit difficult with a brush this size. Just pull it in like that. Now I can't see any of the stems for these. I can't see them at all on the picture. So if I can't see them, I'm not putting them in. It's slightly odd. You'd expect them to be there, but they're not. All right, Mr. Fix-It's telling me that on the original you can. So in the meantime, I'm just going to go back to this petal, which I'm not sure that I like very much. Doesn't seem to have enough detail in it. So I want a lot. So I'm just going to dry. I've put some blue on. I'm just going to dry brush this up to the outside of it. Yeah, I think that's better. It didn't look great before. Yeah, I think that's an improvement. That's good. Let's see where Mr. Fix-It's fine. And oh, I see. So those white lines that I thought were just kind of white lines are actually the stems for our fuzzy bits. Well, I've got that there. I'll just load up the brush with yellow and a little bit of white just to make this yellow even brighter. And we'll just dot these, because that's what they look like when you actually see them close up. So I'm just, with my tiny brush, I'm just adding dots. And I think that's helping the situation. It's giving them a bit of texture. Yeah, I like that better. I'm not going over all the shadows that we've put in. They're there for a reason. Okay, so I'm happy with that. So let's put these white lines in. So we have already got some in, actually. Not necessarily in the right place, but we've got them in. I think that's fine. I think that's all we can do, really. They may have a slight green shadow. Which makes them slightly more visible. Thank you. That's great. It's a good tip that sometimes if you've printed out a photograph, you know, we've got laser printer, it prints out really in good detail, but it's never in such good detail as it is on your computer, the large image that you've found on your computer. This one I found at Pixabay. It's there for all to see, and this is just our version of it. I'm going to have to paint that in. That's a bit too blue. A bit more white maybe. This tiny little brush was never designed for, oh, it's too light now. Never designed for mix and paint. So I advise that you don't really. That's all right. That's fine. Who would have ever known that was there? Right, well, I think it's time to sign it. I think it's really pretty, actually. You could, if you wanted to, if you want to sort of accentuate the way this one glows, and I did bring it through, actually. I was toying with the idea. I've got a Deerfoot stippler here. It's Jackson's one. And you could just go around and put these highlights in if you wanted to, which would look quite pretty, I think. It would balance out the flower a bit better. I'm not going to do that right now, though, but I am going to sign it. And these Posca pens, I hope you can see them there. I've got quite a lot now. This is one set. They come in the acrylic paint in a pen, and they come in different thicknesses. They go right up to really chunky, and they're great for signing your name. They're also really good for details because they're acrylic paint. You know, you can use them with impunity. So there we go. It's signed. That's me done. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you give it a try. Don't forget you can put any colour background and you can make your flower any colour, so you can vary this forever. So let's just take our template off, and there we are. There's my finished piece. There we are. Pretty, isn't it? I quite like that. I like flowers though. Okay, so thanks very much for joining me on this very first Patreon video. There will be loads more to come. I'm quite excited. I'm more than quite excited, actually, about this new venture. So see you soon. Bye.